There are 4 things that you need to do to every single track before you start DJing with it. Some DJs think that it's okay just to drag a track into your DJ software without any preparation at all and start mixing with it. If you do this, you are setting yourself up for failure. I don't care how good of a DJ you are, if you don't prepare your tracks properly beforehand, you are going to really struggle to put on your best performance when DJing. Now why listen to me? I have DJed professionally now for over 15 years. I started DJing on vinyl decks at the age of 16, and since then I have DJed all around the world in clubs, bars, boat parties, pool parties and festivals. And in this video I'm going to share with you the 4 things that I do to every single one of my tracks before I DJ with them. And if you follow these 4 steps, you too will be able to DJ a lot more effectively, with a lot more confidence, and have better overall sounding DJ sets. Let's get into it. Alright, so we have 2 tracks here, and these are just dragged into the DJ software fresh. They have no preparation on them at all, and if anything, I've messed them up a little bit just to show you what to do if they are not perfect. Now, the first thing you need to do with every single track that you first drag over into your DJ software is check the beat grids. For some reason, this is a step that a lot of DJs skip and they don't spend enough time doing. You only really need to do it once at the start when you first drag it in, and then it's done for the rest of the time that you use that track. So first we're going to do it on the track on the left hand side. Now this looks fine. So at first glance, this track on the left hand side looks fine. You can see that there's a red marker right at the very start of the track, and then every 4 beats there's another red marker. And there's a grid line on every single kick drum, which is looking good for dance music. However, if we zoom all the way in onto this first beat, we can see that that grid marker is slightly off the start of the kick drum. So let me just move that to the side slightly. Now this is the most common problem that I find with beat grids when you first get them analysed by the DJ software. The BPMs of the track are normally analysed correctly, but the beat grid is just slightly off. And one theory that I have to why it does this is that it puts the beat grid on the biggest part of the waveform on the kick drum. So as you can see here, the transient of the kick at the start is not as big of a waveform as the main thud of the kick just here. Now this should be really easy to solve. All we need to do is go into the beat grid editor and then just nudge this across to the start of the kick drum. Now it is good practice to do this on the very first kick drum, so I'm going to go back to the start of the track. Alright, just here now we're at the very first beat of the track. So all I'm going to do is nudge this red marker to the start of the kick drum. So just using these arrows and adjustment arrows here along the top. So the top 4 adjustments here just move the whole beat grid across back to the left and to the right. It doesn't change the BPM of the track, it keeps the grid the same distance apart from each other and just moves it all left and right. So I'm just going to move this across slightly. So now it's at the very start of that kick drum. That's where we want it to be. Now from here it's good practice to skip through the track to make sure that it's consistent throughout the track. Now you can do this with beat jump, or you can also just click to a part of the track just here in the waveform like this and just check that it's in the right place. A good place to look is normally right at the very start of a drop section, which this is the first beat of the drop. I think I need to just nudge it slightly more to the right. That's looking good to me, and then we can zoom all the way out and it's looking very consistent. Another thing just to glance at and to check is that the BPM is a round number. So generally producers make tracks at round numbers, which is correct here. It says 130.00, which is a round number. But if it said something like 130.32, that might be a red flag. So it's just something you need to watch out for. But the main thing to look at is actually where the grid lines fall on the track. So that one's fixed. We can now lock this in if we wanted to so it stays the same. I don't know why it changes, but it's always good practice just to lock it in. Now this track on the right hand side is the one that I've messed up a little bit more to show you what to do if your beat grid is completely incorrect. As we can see here, a red marker is not right at the very start of the track and the beat grids just don't land on the kick drums. That is mainly what we're looking for with dance music. It's slightly different with hip hop and R&B and pop music. So for example, if I just press play on this track here and count along, you can see that it doesn't match up at all. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. We should be counting the 1 on every red marker. And also this figure here, 188.09, I think that says, doesn't look right at all. This is a house track and it should not be at that BPM. So we need to open up our beat grid editor. And the first thing we can do is just Google the track name and artist, find out what the BPM is and just type it in this box here. But if you don't have the BPM, for example, like this track, I created this track myself, so you won't be able to find the BPM off this track. We're going to have to do this slightly differently. Just under the BPM here, there's a little button that's called tap. All we need to do here is tap the beat of the track. So I'm going to press play and just tap to the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, tap, 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 tap. All right, let's pause it there. Now, it's not going to be exact, but it's going to be there or thereabouts, and it'll give us a good guideline to work with. So it says 125.61, so let's round it up to 126.00 and see if that works. 0.00. So now we change the BPM, we need to go back to the start of the track and just adjust that beat grid so the very first kick drum has a red marker at the very start of it. Let's just go here. So before we use these top arrows here just to slide it across left and right, but we can also use this half white and half red thermometer looking button that we can use. If I click this, it's going to set a red marker where the playhead is. The playhead is this line in the middle where when the waveforms pass over, that is what you hear in real time. So if we press play on this track now, as it passes over the middle of the track, the playhead here, that is what we can hear. All right, so it's going to set the marker. So I'm going to put the playhead right at the start of that kick drum and just hit this half white, half red button, and it will reset that red marker just there. And this time I'm going to use beat jump to jump through the track. I'm going to zoom out slightly. So that's looking like it's not correct. All right, you can see how the beat grid lines move off slightly. So that doesn't look correct to me. So I don't need to jump through the track. It already looks like it's going out of time. So the beat grid is too short for the kick drums, which means it's too fast. So we actually need to slow the beat grid down and stretch it out slightly. So there's more beats per minute. So what I'm going to do is drop this down to 125 BPM. So 1 BPM lower. And you can keep doing this in increments until you get it right. All right, that's looking a lot better now. So let's zoom back in on that first kick drum. Should still be in the same place. Now this time I'm going to use beat jump. So I'm going to go to hot cue, drop down, beat jump here, and just jump through the track, just checking that that red marker is at the start of the kick drum. And it's looking very consistent. Change that back to hot cue, zoom out, and go back to the start of the track. All right, that is both of our tracks' beat grids now correctly in place. You will not come across anything more difficult than that when correcting a beat grid. Like I said, it's often just slightly off time like the one on the left, but if it is completely out of time and out of whack like the one on the right, that is how you correct it. If you do this every single track that you have, this is going to help you out a lot with DJing, as the beat grid on the track is how the software uses things like the sync button, your loops, your effects. It all goes off the beat grid. That is how it understands where the kick drums and what the BPM of the track is. So if that's out of time, it's going to mess up quite a lot of your DJing. Now I do understand that some people don't like doing that because they want to manually beat match, and that's fine, but I think it's just quite silly if you have a beat grid that's incorrect and you don't correct it. I think it's quite lazy and ignorant. It doesn't take long just to correct the beat grid and it'll help you out with your DJing loads. So that's a quick masterclass there in how to reset your beat grids, and I personally think it's one of the most important things that you need to know how to do as a modern day DJ. If you don't correct your beat grids, you really are missing out on lots of the cool features in the DJ software and what you can do now as a DJ. All right, now the second thing that we need to do to every single track is set our mix in points. So these are the points of the track that you're going to use to mix the track in. So generally they're at the start of the track, but it doesn't always have to be there. There are many different ways to do this, different techniques and methods of mixing your tracks in and out, which we'll get to later. But I'm going to show you in this video the most common one that I use for my dance music and hip hop and R&B. And that is where I set a 32 beat loop before the key point in the track I want to mix into. Now this 32 beat loop intro technique that I'm going to show you now is one of the main things a lot of my students tell me that's really good about my DJ courses and what I teach in my DJ course on how to use this effectively. So we'll start with this track on the left here. And basically what I'll do is listen through the track and listen to when the significant sounds of the track first come in. That could be the bass line, the vocals, or the instruments, the main sounds of the track that the audience will hook onto. Anything that's basically not drums. So right at the start of the track, it's just some basic drums. We'll let it flick through. Still some drums. All right, now we've got some vocals and a sustained, it's hard to say that, a sustained string in the background. It's very subtle but pushed back. But the main thing that came in then is the vocals. So I'm just going to find the point where the vocals first come in, which is here, and then beat jump back 32 beats. So that's one phrase. And then from here, I'm going to set a 32 beat loop, save it in my hot cue bank, and that is the section that I use to mix in with. Now, as you can see, it's not right at the very start of the track. That's one common mistake beginner DJs sometimes make, is they'll just start a track every single time right from the start, and it's not necessary all the time. Now, the reason why I use loops at the start of the track is so that I can set the loop off and extend that intro for as long as I want. Then at the end of the loop is always going to be the significant point in the track I want to mix into. And I'll show you how to use that later in the video. Let's do the track on the right hand side now, so let's listen to the start. So it's mainly just drums, still just drums. Alright, and then we got the bass line coming in. So at a basic level, that is what I'd want to mix into. Now, I can go on all day about all the different types of techniques that you can do to mix tracks together, but that's not what this video is about. If you do want to learn all about the different techniques, the different methods, I do go through every single one in my online DJ course. So I'm going to take it to this point here, beat jump back 32 beats, and then just set a 32 beat loop here, save it in the hotkey bank, and this is the section I'm going to use to mix with. Alright, now the third thing that you want to do to every single track before you DJ with it is set your mix out points. Now that is mix out points plural. I like to set multiple mix out points throughout my track, so I have different options to exit the track. If a track's going down really well, I'll leave it towards the end. If I feel like I need to mix out of it a little bit earlier, I also have the option as well. Now you can do that on the fly, but it does help if you have some preparation and know the ideal points to mix out of to make your mixing nice and smooth. So let's do this track on the left hand side first. Now generally I will set the mix out point just before it goes into a break. Again, I want to try and keep this brief, so it'll be around this point here. So we've still got kick and bass there, it's still part of the drop section. And then it goes down into that break section. So I normally describe dance music like a roller coaster. It goes up and then down. And then just at the bottom, so where it goes right at the bottom of the roller coaster is where you want to mix out into another track, generally, which is just here. Alright, now I won't use loops here, but I'll still use what I call my one phrase system. This has also been described by my students as making DJing really easy and effective. It lets you mix any track into any track and really helps with the flow of your DJing, especially when DJing live, and being flexible with your DJ set. So from here, I'm just going to set a hot cue, beat jump back one phrase, and set another one just here. I almost went ahead of myself then. Now you might have seen me jump through that track without pressing any buttons on here, and that is due to my keyboard shortcuts. One thing I heavily teach in my DJ course is making things nice and efficient and fast, speeding up your workflow. One of the biggest things I use is beat jump on my keyboard shortcuts. So right now, if you watch the screen up here on the left on this track, you'll see me jump forwards and backwards through the track very fast at a touch of a button. That is because I've got my keyboard shortcuts set up on my laptop. I'm not going to go into too much detail with that now, but if you just go to settings, keyboard, you can customize your keyboard shortcuts as much as you like in this option here. Now, another thing I like to do with my hotkeys is color coordinate them. I personally like having my mix out points as blue. So I can just change these both to blue here. You can change them to any color you like. One student of mine actually said to me he uses a traffic light system, which I think is brilliant. He'll have green for mixing in, then orange or amber for the first hot cue, and then red for the second hot cue. Which basically means green you mix in, amber is get ready to mix out, and red you should be mixed out by, which I think is a really good system. But for me, I personally like having them blue. I do have a whole list of what different colors mean to me, but I'm just going to keep this one simple and keep it dark blue. This basically means to me this is the last phrase that I can play of this track before I want to mix out of it by. I want to be mixed out by hot cue F. And then I'm going to do the same towards the end of a track, and from here now I'll listen to where the track's significant sounds end and it goes into the outro. So that's slightly different to the middle of the track where you're listening for the drop section to end and go into the break section. At the end of the track, I'm listening out for where the significant sounds end and it just goes to drums, which I think is here. So we still hear the bass line, bit of vocal. Alright, just into drums. Set that hot cue here, beat jump back one phrase, nice and fast with my shortcuts, colour them blue, go back to the start of the track, and that's this track completed. I got my mix in point with my loop, and then my two mix out points for options. Another thing that you can do with this system that's quite cool is use these hot cues to jump to this part in the track. So for example, from hot cue F, we can jump to hot cue H and go straight to the outro. So from here, track's playing. Now I might be mixing the other track in, which I'll show you in a minute. When it gets to hot cue F, press hot cue H, and then we have an outro. Just like that. Alright, let's do the same on the track on the right hand side. Let's listen to where it goes from the drop section to the break in the middle of the track. So we've got kick and bass there, and a pluck like a melody. Alright, that was what I would class as the break. So just here, I'm going to set a hot cue, jump back, one phrase, colour them blue. I'm going to go quicker through this track, and then go to the end of the track. So we're listening out for where the significant sounds end, which could be the bass line, instruments or vocals, and it going into the drums. Alright, so we've still got some bass line there. Into drums, alright. Just here, set a hot cue, beat jump back, one phrase, and set another hot cue. Colour them blue. Go back to the start of the track. Alright, so we now have our mix in point and mix out points on the second track as well. Now the fourth thing that you need to do with every single track before you start DJing live with them is to test them out. Now this one might sound obvious, but you'll be surprised how many times I've set hot cues and my mix in and mix out points and then gone to DJ live with it and just realised there's better places for them mix in and mix out points. I often find that I might want a hot cue jump in there or to loop a different part. The only way to truly know if your hot cues and your mix in points and mix out points work and they're in the correct place is to test them out. This is where you get a true feel of what it's like to listen to the track from start to finish as if you were in the audience, or even if you do play it live and there is an audience, you'll get the feedback from them. So for example, this track on the left hand side here can go on a little bit too long. So what I've done in the past is use a little bit of a hot cue jump in the middle of it here. So from this point here, I'm going to beat jump forward to here, and that would sound like this. Alright, so you see I jumped from hot cue C to hot cue D, missing out this whole break and drop section. Now I'm not saying you should do that every time, I'm just explaining that if you were to listen to this track from start to finish and test it out, you might find it's a little bit long and you can put something like this in. Now I normally put my hot cue jumps as pink, so I will know that one would be a hot cue jump. Now we can test these two tracks with each other and also test them with other tracks in your library. This is a system that you can use to DJ flexibly. That means you can mix any track into any track. They all fit together like jigsaw puzzles, or what I like to refer to is like Tetris blocks. Alright, let's do a quick mix and test this out. Let's mix out in the middle of the track here, into the new track, using my mix out points here between the blue hot cues and my loop to mix in. Let's do it. Alright, exit the loop now. Alright, now that didn't sound bad. I mistimed the echo slightly, but it wasn't too bad. Now, doing that, we might find that, it's a little bit flat now when it goes into this part of the intro. So let's add a hot cue jump to hot cue H. So let's try that one out and see if it makes any difference. So now when it gets to hot cue F, I'm going to jump to hot cue H. And then we can let the mix ride out. Now it's up to you which one of them you use. I'm just showing you the options, just highlighting just to test your tracks and to see if you can find any other parts of the tracks that might sound better, or if you're happy with your mix in and mix out points. When I'm DJing my tracks, I'm constantly changing them week in and week out. I'll play them and maybe find a little point in the track that I might want to change, or hear a better mix in point or a mix out point. I would make a note of it and then change it after my DJ set when I get home. Constantly trying to evolve my DJ sets, and it's always a work in progress. So there you have it. Those are the 4 things that you should do to every single track before you DJ with them. If you like this video and you want to learn more about DJing, check out this video here that's been suggested to you, and hopefully this will help you out as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the future. Bye for now.